Hey folks, it's Frederik from the FWX podcast. I've been covering a lot of the MCU lately. You may have seen my Thunderbolts episode at this point, of which I was very blown away by. Before I start talking about anything else, I want to say that you may have noticed that I haven't been producing as many episodes lately. It's because I took a little time off and did a couple of other things myself. But now I'm back at it. So I want to talk about something inside Marvel, of course. I've been covering stuff from the past, talking about the Captain America series, not the TV series, gonna start again with that. So I've been covering a lot about the MCU lately, talking about the Black Panther movies. And those are these two, of course, which are incredible movies. And I have been loving those for a good couple of years. And I covered them. You can go and watch them, of course, when you want to. But of course, this one set up something that I want to talk about now that recently got published from Marvel. And of course, I am referring to this project, Ironheart. And I've said before that I'm going to cover it, and so I'm going to do that right now. And of course, as you can see in the picture, Ironheart's Riri Williams herself is played by Dominque Thorne, who plays the titular role here. I'm gonna do this just like the show was, with 3 episodes at a time in one podcast episode. I'm gonna do this a bit faster because, well, the series has concluded for now. And of course, I do think we're gonna see Riri in something new. But to do that, I'm gonna talk first about the story. I'm gonna talk about the actors playing the different characters, including that incredible cameo at the very end of the 6th episode. And we will get there in due time. But first, before I start with any of that, I'm gonna give you the disclaimer. So, I'm not a original English speaker, so on occasion I might still flub a word. That might happen. I have an occasion of when I really get into things and I really get animated and passionate, I might swear. That tends to happen sometimes. I also want to tell you that on occasion I might also get ahead of myself or try and think of a way of saying something and not finding it, and that leads me usually to an awkward pause. And so that tends to happen sometimes. And I want you to know that. Also, what I'm reading is on my screen, and that means that the screen is going to brighten, and I am going to brighten as well. And so that is all the information you have to know right now. One more thing. You can see I'm in a different place right now. So if you hear any echo, that's because I'm in a large room right now. But let's start with talking about these episodes of the Ironheart TV show that Marvel put out a while ago. Okay, so first and foremost, I should say, these are all characters with a adapted screenplay for this TV series, so not everything is faithful to the comics, and personally I am fine with that. And so we start everything after the events of Black Panther Wakanda Forever, which is an incredible movie in its own right, where we meet Riri for the first time. And so we start with episode 1 called Take Me Home. And of course, Riri being a incredible character. There was something else I wanted to say, but then I would already be giving a lot away. That was a weird way for me to say. Anyway, so we start with Riri at MIT, exactly, because she has just been expelled. It's a bit more played out, of course, in the scenes in the series where she tries to retrieve her work from MIT because she had made a Iron Man-like suit of her own design that she wants to hopefully use for herself. But the school, the institute, MIT itself, does not want that to happen, so they want her to not do that. Yes. And so that gets her in trouble with her professors, including someone we have seen before and that I've talked about, but not specifically about him, but he appears in a previous movie that I've talked about in an episode of the podcast, specifically Captain America Civil War, when Tony gives his presentation to the people at MIT, we see, as he's walking backstage, someone that we see right this moment in this series, and it is this gentleman right here, Professor Wilkes, played by Jim Rash, who appears in that moment in Civil War as well, when Tony says that you all get funded. And so he is Riri's professor, and he is, of course, what would the right word be? He is not happy with how things are happening, because Riri is kind of a whole character in her own right, and by which I mean she is very thick in the head. I mean that she's kind of brash and arrogant, and she really has no trust or respect to any figure of authority, is specifically what I mean. And so he gets the brunt of that, quite literally, as she is trying to get that suit of hers that she made with the tuition that she got from the school to, well, basically his clothes go on fire. And so he's not happy about that, of course, which leads Riri, I'm gonna show the person playing Riri, I've said her name already, but I'm gonna show her yet again, Dominque Thorne. That leads Riri to a conversation with Professor Wilkes and with her principal as well. Maybe I have a picture of that woman. Because yes, women can also be principals. You know what, I'm going to briefly look this up for a moment. Give me a moment, folks. You know what? I am getting something wrong here. So Yeah, this is just something that I'm not understanding for a moment, so I'm gonna rephrase what I've just been saying for a moment. So, principals of our schools, grade schools, and I'm saying this because I'm obviously not an American, despite maybe sounding like one, because of the accent I've garnered while trying to speak English all my life. So principals are in schools, but universities have deans. And so Professor Wilkes is also the dean of the school. If I'm wrong about it, you can call me out for that, if you like, in the comments. Or not. I'm making sure I'm not making that mistake again right now. So, okay. As I've been explaining, Riri has made a suit of her own that leads her into hot water with the authority figures at MIT and leads to her expulsion eventually. Well, eventually. We see it happen in the scenes exactly. She gets expelled. And it's not just for making the suit itself with money from the school. It's also because to get all that funding, she has been selling some previous work of her own so that other students can use it to plagiarize. So that leads her ultimately to getting expelled from MIT. And she has no other way to go back to her hometown of Chicago but to use her own suit. And so she just takes it away and goes back home to Chicago, which is a place we haven't been to before in Marvel, in the MCU specifically. And so she goes back with her armor, which is obviously very Stark look-alike, but still her own design. And personally, I find it kind of Gundam looking like. For me, the whole takeaway from this show is magic versus mech. That's for me the tagline. It's not the official tagline, but I think it fits well where you have technology versus magic. Or in this case, especially with that suit, mech. Okay. And so Riri returns home with the suit. Turns out the suit isn't as good as she remembers it, and she crashes into the streets. And we get the fancy way that you can have the name of the show plastered on the screen. And so it spells out Ironheart in the concrete. And that leads her to get a driving basket kind of thing from someone. And I might be wrong, but I do believe that it was a young boy played by this actor, Harper Anthony, who has that basket on wheels thing that she gets from him. And by the way, that kid really shows off his business side in those moments. And so she takes that whole suit back home, and she finds the people that she has had her whole life. For instance, but she's also faced. So those people in her life, in her past and present, that are still there for her, as they are all still dealing with the fact that actually something happens a whole while ago. Specifically that Riri's best friend Natalie and her stepfather were gunned down by someone in a car many years ago. Or maybe I have the time wrong with that. But it definitely happens. Riri's best friend Natalie and her stepfather Gary were gunned down while they were in the car shop that Gary used to own. And so everyone that Riri knows is still dealing with the after effects from what happens. I'm assuming years later. It might be sooner. Anyway, time notwithstanding. So, not only are the people she knows still dealing with that, she's still dealing with it because this is for her the thing that was going to help her out. She wanted to make a difference, and her making a difference was actually to make a kind of, I'll come back on that later because I need to talk about other things now too. So Riri comes home to Chicago to the people that she has been with all this time, and she reconnects with Natalie's brother Xavier, who's played in this TV series by this gentleman right here, Matthew Elam. That's him right here. And not too long after this, she is confronted by a guy named John, who was played in this series by this gentleman, Manny Montana. And she is recruited by John to go and join a gang of thieves that is led by a family member of his named Parker Robbins, who is a figure from the comics, by the way, who is also known now as the Hood. And he's played by the other big performance actor in this movie, in this TV series, and that is, of course, Mr. Anthony Ramos, who plays the Hood. And so, the reason why Riri is recruited is because she needs the money so she can invest in her suit. And so she gets loped in with this group of thieves led by Parker Robbins. And the first time she goes and visits this group, she has to pass a test, which is a gas-filled elevator that she narrowly escapes. And she agrees to take part in the activities of the gang, of course, for money, because she needs it so she can improve her suit. And as that becomes clear to her, she returns home and she meets up with her mother, Ronnie, who is played by this woman, Anji White, who does a pretty good job in this TV series, I have to say. And it's clear in the confrontation between Riri and her mom that she is still not over what happened with Natalie and Gary. And she lashes out at her mom because of it. Because she hasn't been dealing well with the death of her best friend and her stepfather. Just like in the comics, by the way. And so Riri needs to do a couple of things to get the suit working, and that includes an AI to guide her. And the whole reason why the suit previously self-destructed basically was because she had to do like a remote learning tool basically that the school, that MIT instructed her to have inside the suit. And so Riri knows that she needs the legit thing, but it costs a lot to get the right kind of gear to make that. And so she starts with one thing that she can do on her own without any other thing, and that is to upload a mapping of her own brain so she can create a built-in AI for the suit. And by the way, the mapping of her own brain is actually a set of neuroscience techniques but because she hasn't been dealing with the loss of her friend and her stepfather, her unprocessed grief results in a representation of her dead best friend, of Natalie. And that is where that episode ends. And so that is a lot of setup, of course, for what is about to happen with the next couple of episodes. Of course, I'm talking about this post the episodes being out, because that took a while. But anyway, so let's... wait, before I go any further with any next episodes, I have to mention that because this is Riri and this is Chicago, there is a lot of music involved. And so I'm going to do one more extra thing, and that is talk about the music for a moment that is in this series. And I'm going to briefly talk about that music that is played. For instance, and this is in no particular order, but I'm assuming it is. So some of the music that I don't know first, and that is, for instance, Dizzy Fave, a song called Alter, followed by a song named T by the artist named Cobra with an H at the end. And that is then followed by Home is Where the Hatred Is by Gil Scott Heron, another person I don't know about. Now, someone I have heard about is Gorgeous George, You Need Me. Actually, that name does... The name does say something to me. Give me a second. Oh, well, you know what? This is a reference to a character inside the MCU. A mutant from the comics. I'm reading faster. So his original name was George Blair, a mutant from the comics. So I'm thinking this song it's a real song, of course, but it's likely an Easter egg to that character called Gorgeous George. Okay, that is then followed up by Chick Norris with It's Like That. And then a couple of artists together, Christopher Vivon, Austin Jenkins, Joshua Black, And then the most known person of this group, Leon Bridges with Brown Skin Girl. And Leon Bridges is, of course, the real name of Ludacris. I'm gonna look that up just to be sure, because I might be wrong though. Oh, no. I am wrong. I am mixing up names here. No. My bad. I am getting it wrong. So Leon Bridges is a solo artist himself, but this is a collaboration of him and a couple other artists for the song Brown Skin Girl. Okay. So I get that right. Okay, so the next artist is Harvey Connell with a song called Lonesome Heart. And we have also Sir with No Evil. And then, of course, the incorrigible Nina Simone with the song Cinnamon. Which might also be a reference to the fact that this TV show was produced by the one and only Ryan Coogler, who also directed the 2 Black Panther movies, and the smash hit of this year so far, the movie Sinners. Okay, let's continue with episode 2. And this episode is called Will the Real Natalie Please Stand Up? Which is obviously a play on the song Will the Real Slim Shady Please Stand Up? So, this episode starts with Riri coming to terms with the fact that she has someone looking out for her. Well, and it looking out for her. And that is the AI digital recreation of her best friend, Natalie. And by the way, Natalie is abbreviated here. And in fact, the AI says it herself. It is short for Neuro-Autonomous Technical Assistant and Laboratory Intelligence Entity, which is a pretty good abbreviation if I know one. Okay. And so that leads Riri to go and meet up with Parker's gang. And before she can do so, she kind of admonishes the fact that she has an AI that looks 100% like her best friend. And so she tries to be super clear, crystal clear, that you cannot come right now. Because that would give me away, and I do not want to get caught for doing bad stuff. And so Riri leaves the Natalie AI at home, and she goes to visit to the pizzeria where the group of thieves is hanging out. And she meets up with the people on the gang. That includes the hacker Slug. And I'm gonna talk about the actors playing these people for a moment. And for instance, Slug is a hacker played by this person right here, Shea Coulee. I hope I pronounced that right. And this looks like someone I need to know more about. I'm gonna look it up for a moment. So, Shea Coulee, someone I know not a lot about, but this is a drag queen who's also now dabbled in acting as well with this series and is also part of RuPaul's Drag Race before. And so she plays Slug in this series. Okay. The next person that Riri gets to know are 2 twins, Jerry and Ross, blood, and they're fighters. And give me a second. Okay, it is different here. So Roz is played by this actress, Shakira Barrera, and Jerry is played by Zoe Tarakis. I hope I'm gonna show it again so you can see it good. And there's also a pyrotechnician on the team named Clown, played by this actress right here, Sonia Dennis. And then there's also John, who is Parker Robbins' cousin, who I've mentioned before, played by Manny Montana. And of course, Parker Robbins himself, played by Anthony Ramos. And so Riri meets up for, I want to say a debrief, but debrief is usually after a mission. So a layout, basically, of the first mission that they're gonna do. And that is to target the company TNNL, which is trying to convert the freight tunnels in Chicago into a private highway at the expense of the people living in Chicago. And that leads Riri to go and get something extra for her suits. And she goes to someone that she saw on a list named Joe McGillicuddy, who is a black market arms collector in Evanston, which is a place inside Illinois, not too far from Chicago. It's a suburb of Chicago, to be exact. Well, when you hear me talk like these kinds of things, you know that despite me sounding like an American, I am not. So Riri goes to Evanston so she can get parts from this black market arms collector so she can complete her suit. And speaking of the suits, having an AI, in the meantime, Riri's mom, Ronnie, comes back home from her work and sees for the first time the Natalie AI and is absolutely spooked by it because it is so accurate to who Natalie was as a real person before. And spooked sounds right. Okay. And this Joe McGillicuddy guy is played by an actor we've seen before. That is this guy right here, Alden Ehrenreich. I've seen him in Oppenheimer. I also know that he plays a young Han Solo in that movie, of course, from Star Wars. And I think I've seen him in something else as well. But okay, that is it for now. Riri returns. They start the heist, and Riri is basically backup in case something goes wrong with the heist, which leads her to be confronted by Natalie again, her AI in the form of her best friend. And because of Natalie, the heist is nearly derailed, almost literally, given that they're dealing with a tunnel kind of aspect. Pun intended. But they do manage to successfully sabotage this place, which allows Parker Robbins, who has been trying the negotiating play with the CEO, to get the gang on the payroll of that company, as he shows off the skills that he has with the hood that he has. And as Riri gets out with the suits, the both of them freeze up when they are confronted by a cop, a police person, because of what happened before. Since Natalie, the AI, is a recreation of the real person. But then they are saved by Parker himself. But they are saved by Parker, who shoots a bullet into this cop, and they hurry the hell away from the kill. And Natalie, of course, and Natalie warns Riri of this Parker guy. And in the ending scenes of this episode, we see that Parker, because he's been wearing the hood, which is also something from the Marvel lore, is that this, well, I almost wanted to say cape, but it's a hood, of course, because you can actually put something on your head as well, actually is exacting a toll on Parker, and it gives him very creepy tattoos. And that is where this episode ends. And let's go further. But before we go any further, of course, I'm gonna reference the music that happens in this one as well. Starting with a collaboration between Alejandro Martin, Neil Goldberg, David Fraser, and Ariel Winters with the song Transformation, followed by the song Sterilized by Dildox, and then also Pony Up by Spilt Milk, and then also I've Been Dreaming by Mark Kelly, the artist, not the senator, from Arizona. And On the Way to the Place. Yeah, this one I can actually point to a specific moment because I still remember it from the series. The song You Oughta Know by Alanis Morissette, as Riri meets with Joe in the car, as they're driving to the place where he has all his stuff, his black market stuff. And it is revealed that the both of them are a big fan of Alanis, especially Joe. And that song is followed up by Fine Line by an artist named Piwa, if I said that right. And then also after that is the song Hold Me Down by the artist known as Treasure, followed up by Ain't Nobody by Shaka Khan. That kind of tells me something as well. Can I look that up for a moment? But I think that this is me not getting it again. And that is because there's a Belgian artist with a song called Breakfast. Wait. Hold up a second. I'm gonna look it up properly. Just a second. Here it is. So there's a Belgian artist known as Praga Khan, with a song called Breakfast in Vegas. That was what I was thinking of, so my bad. So I was getting it wrong for a moment. That's okay. I was still talking about the songs. Okay, then there's a song called Kick Push It by Lupe Fiasco. I've heard of that artist. And then finally, Fearmonger by Saba featuring Daoud. And that's the last song for this episode of Ironheart. Okay, on to episode number 3 of Ironheart, with the song called We in Danger Girl. Sorry, with the episode called We in Danger Girl, which is what Riri hears from Natalie. And it starts with a fight as the gang is curious about what the hood really does for Parker. And this leads to John reprimanding Riri and Clown for getting so invested in the hood, which is a source of Parker's powers. But this leads them indirectly to target another well-known company in the Chicago area called Elam, which is an agri-tech company. And their innovations are very, very bad to the people that farm in the Chicago area. And Riri quickly learns that she's actually a replacement for somebody. And that someone is Stuart Rampage Clark, who is played by a very known person in real life as well. And that is Eric Andre, right here. And this leads her to go and seek help from Joe McGillicuddy again. And we learned from him that actually this isn't just any kind of name, which also sounds very silly at the same time. Because actually Joe is nobody else but a fake name. Because Joe is actually Ezekiel Ezekiel Stain, or as he likes to be called, Zeke. And he's the son of Obadiah Stain, which is the old but what would that title be? You know what, I'm gonna quickly look it up for a moment. So, but first I want to say though that Obadiah Stane we saw in the very beginning of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, as he was portrayed by Jeff Bridges. And so Zeke is his son, who has been away from his father for a long time, but also apparently not, because apparently he died a good couple of years ago, and Zeke just tries to take care of himself while also holding on to the ashes of his father as they spill out of a bag in his kitchen in the scenes that we see. And so Zeke gives Riri the information that she wants, but he also warns her that don't repeat what my father did by doing bad things with bad people. But ultimately, it does give her a sample of biomesh, which is something that the character is known for in the comics. But he gives her it nonetheless, because this is going to full heirloom security system. And then we get the heist itself as it plays out at midnight, as Parker is once again in his business negotiating style, trying to extort the CEO of Heirloom, a guy named Hunter Mason. And while Parker is doing this, Riri wants to know where he got his powers from, as the Natalie AI has said before, that is dangerous power to have. And so Riri wants to know more about it. So while everyone is working on their own, and she is once again standby as well, she goes after the cloak, the hood, and manages to cut a piece from it at the very bottom, while Parker is wearing it and trying to intimidate the CEO. And finally, Riri manages to do this. But in the process of doing this, the temperature goes up, which causes the alarm to go off in the facility of Elam. Which traps the gang inside the facility, as it is filling itself with carbon dioxide to poison it, the people inside. And Riri manages to get away with a tiny piece of the hood, only to be attacked by John. I'm gonna show that actor again, played by Manny Montana, I'm sorry. And so John sees that Riri has a piece of the hood, and he is of course troubled by this, and he tries to catch up with her. And he also confesses to her that he killed Stewart on Parker's orders. In the fight that they have, John shows that he's a badass, but he's not human. But that he's still human though, because he does make mistakes. And we get a clear contrast between that Riri is way more of a badass when she has her own suits, but she has tasked Natalie inside the suit, as the AI is now part of the suit, to stand guard, while she went to go and get a piece of the hood from Parker. And so that leads her to the confrontation with John, and John nearly kills her, and he admits that he killed Rampage, of course. And in this process of the confrontation, she loses the biomesh, which results partly in the security system getting activated. And this leaves Riri to go because there's a ship waiting for everyone to get outside, because this facility of Heirloom is outside the city on the water in like an old oil rig basically, but then restructured so we can have a company there. And so Riri is rescued by the suit, by Natalie inside the suit, and leaves John to suffocate on the facility, which leads us to Parker learning of this, and he is of course distraught by what happened, and he's unsure of what to do. because John was basically his rock, his tether to what was still happening, because he's been affected by the hood. And we get this episode with an end where Parker gets a vision for who is responsible, and we see in a very dark way in the shadows the looming shadow of the suit that Riri has made. Yes, and that is where this episode of the show ends. And also, this is where I'm gonna quit with Ironheart for this moment. And so, well, since I'm talking about the show post it being out there, which you can go and watch on Disney Plus, of course, which I also watched it on. And so, I hope you enjoyed me rambling and listening to me talk about the story and the characters and pointing out who plays who. And I want to thank you if you've been doing that for this long already, for these episodes and for other videos if you have seen some. So thank you for all of that. This is the FWX podcast. And before I go, I want to say that you can like this video if you like. And if you like even more of this kind of content, you can subscribe to the channel. And you can also comment if you like. And I will see you in the next video. See ya.